We are going to be talking about pet play sort of writ large tonight and figuring out what exactly that refers to, what it is and what it isn't. And Shade, I guess we'll start there. I mean, disclaimers out of the way. Is pet play in any way tied to bestiality?
Not at all, or zoophilia, neither one. So pet play is 100% human pets. People who like to dress up as animals or behave as animals. No bio animals are part of pet play. Not at all. We do not support that.
Bio animals is definitely a term worth breaking down and keeping in your back pocket. I'm going to hold on to that one. And I want to be very mindful to put that question and those categories on a totally different shelf than this question that I'm asking. But as we're getting into sort of the taxonomy of pet play, is this at all tied to furry fandom or to like leather culture and dom sub dynamics and pup play? I mean, help me break these things down a little bit.
Okay. So there is some gray area in there with the furries. Some pet players like me, I think pet play is an umbrella term. So having any of the pups, kittens, ponies, or furries, I think that's all part of the pet play umbrella. But then you also have people who, or pets or furries, who prefer that they're their own thing, that they don't exist in the same umbrella. So it's a really gray area for a lot of people. um Pet Play Pride Texas specifically does the umbrella. We include everybody. If we have a party, a munch, a mosh, we want all the furries and we want all the pets and all the handlers and everybody to come and join us and support that community.
Yeah. Well, so how does this tie into like leather culture and pup play and that sort of dom sub dynamic? Does that fall under this umbrella?
It does, and actually most of the pet play, I believe, stems historically from leather.
Hmm.
And that it started with like leather pigs and then leather pups, and then branching out from that into just pup play and kitten play and pony plays. It's still very relevant to the leather world, very
Hmm.
relevant. It's they hold competitions all over the country. It's actually amazing to watch.
Well, and I suppose on like the other side of that dial, for me at least, would be that more like tender, soft dom, caregiver, little type dynamic. Does that have a part to play here too?
Sometimes, again, that's more of a gray area. As a kitten myself, I do kind of go into a kitten space, which does make me behave more like a little, but I don't identify as a little at all. So, and then I'm also a dominant person if I'm not in my pet space. So it does have some of that, but
Hmm.
you really have handlers and masters and owners, and they want to scratch your ears and rub your belly and feed you treats.
Yeah, and I'll just say to the audience here, like we are throwing a lot of words around and we are sort of poking around at the edges and talking about what this is and what it isn't. We're gonna break all of this down a little bit further. So to that end, what sort of maybe like broad categories are we talking about here? I mean, to start with, I heard you mention kittens and ponies and puppies and lions and tigers and bears. Oh my! Like
Yes,
what are
all of
we
them.
looking at here?
All of them. And as far as pet play, you don't get too many of those fantasy animals that you do with furries or the combination of animals. You do get some different types. Like I'm a kitten. I have my little kitty ears and my bell, and I love it. And then I also have a mask that was made for me
Hmm.
because there's not a whole lot of options for cat masks like there are for pup masks or pony masks. Um, but with pup play, you get like their hoods and you have mittens, or they almost look like boxing gloves so they can be on their knuckles as they move, and tails. Um, and there's different kinds of tails. This is a little bunny tail. It's actually a butt plug bunny tail.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have a tie-on tail. So that
And
just
Very
that
like
just
nice.
goes to the back of your pants or
Mhm,
whatever else you might be wearing. Yeah.
correct. So there's opportunity for any type of pet within pet play to find those types of gear.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, going back to like the furry side, you have people who dress up as dragons or um those really fun like colorful bears. I don't know what they call themselves,
Sure.
but I
I
love
imagine
them.
there are unicorns and all sorts of different
Yes,
ideas.
like all those. And then you also have a primal subsect as well, where you find your like big cats and your wolves. So you have your lions who like to roar and wrestle and do body play type things. So all of that is in there.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure it varies by the person, by the scene, by the situation, and everything else. But these different types of animals, is there a different mindset, a different flavor? Is it significant if somebody chooses to be a dragon versus a kitten? Is that something that we should be understanding?
There are huge differences. For me, I love ponies. They are my favorite out there. Their gear is so gorgeous. The latex, the hooves, they're amazing. If I could choose to be a pet, I'd be a pony. But I don't identify with their behavior. I don't identify with that animal myself. I
Mm-hmm.
identify with as a kitten. And recently, since I've created Pet Play Pride, now have been more in spotlight and talking um about all of these things with different communities and different groups, I've become more extroverted. And so I've been leaning more towards like a fox. So your mentality on it can change, but you also don't identify as everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing that I want to talk about, and when you talk about like so much variety in there is like the level of immersion that you can have. Like some, you've shown us some costume elements, and whatnot, but like what's the range here for acceptability? Like as a CGL dom, I've had littles who very much like to dress up, and some who don't, but still have animalistic tendencies. So what's the range that your group has in it?
So gear is not required, it's a mindset.
Yeah.
You can have zero gear and still show up to a party and walk on all fours and bark at somebody, and we'll understand that you're a pup. It's that simple. But then you also
It's a
have
valid form of expression no matter how
Mhm,
you wear it.
absolutely. And then you have the people who go head to toe, and I'm kind of someone in the middle. I like to wear like a cute outfit with my hair, my ears, and my tail and my bells, but I don't do the full latex bodysuit that some people see, like Catwoman. I don't do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't go that far into it. I do have a story about immersion from a pony friend of mine. If we have a moment to do that.
Yeah, let's dive in. I am fascinated by all of the different just wrinkles to this.
So I have a pony friend in Austin, and they do the full latex. They have a custom horse hood, all the things, even the anatomy, all the things. And when they get into their horse mode, they like to pull carts and pull people around in carts. They neigh. They're gorgeous. There was a day that they were doing a photo shoot with his handler, and he was so immersed out in this field where there was trees and the grass and other horses, and just kind of like being in that, he started mimicking other horse behaviors without really thinking about it, nuzzling the trees and stuff like that, and stamping his hoof. And they just kind of watched him do this
Mm-hmm.
because he just got that immersed into it. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I love that notion, and we'll talk a little bit about that like pet space mindset and everything here in just a moment. But I guess I'm curious if pet space, headspace, or costuming or anything else is sort of like a necessary ingredient. Is there anything that is sort of is vital to playing in this space, or how would you even like draw boundaries or borders around the things we're talking about?
So I really haven't run into too many issues with something along the lines of someone not being um in like pet. I know if you're really curious about it, a lot of people will come and watch some pets play or come ask questions, and you generally find out fairly quickly whether or not you align with the behavior or not, just in my experience.
Hmm.
Um so I don't see a lot of people just attempting to do it and not be in the pet space and just
Sure. So that's maybe the like the one defining element is sort of that mindset or that mentality.
yes, I think
Well,
so.
I guess with that in mind, I mean, we're 15 minutes into this and we haven't talked at all about sex. I think because of the show that we're doing, people are making some assumptions, but in the broadest possible terms, you've talked about people being outside and sort of like immersed in a particular mindset. You've talked about people coming to parties and interacting with each other in groups. What are we talking about here? What does pet play look like out in the wild? Like, what are some of the various forms, or what is something that you could look up and see and go, oh, that's pet play. They are pet playing. Where are the boundaries there?
Um, so the that the sex in pet play is a gray area. Most things you'll find online aren't going to be sexual because pet play is not really inherently sexual.
Hmm.
Um, it's really a lot of that handler dynamic or master owner pet dynamic where you have a bond and they treat you the way you want to be treated in this pet space and they take care of you in that space. But as far as drawing like limits, I don't know where I would draw that.
Hmm.
Because it's going to be different for everybody. It's For me, my pet space is usually I want to be comforted and cuddled and just lay around. But to someone else or to like the pups, they like to bark and play and run at each other. So if you're Googling pet play, I would probably actually put Pride with that. Because you see them a lot at Pride. They'll be in the um, crowd words, sorry. They'll be in the crowd, like in their like hoods, and they just sit there and wag and they bark and they it's like bringing your dog to the parade.
So seeing that this is, and since you bring that up, since there's a good chance if you go to a pride parade or a pride festival that you will find people engaging in pet play. What's the etiquette here? Like you see someone who is engaging in pet play, how do you approach them? How do you like? How does any of that work?
So I say approach them like you would any animal if you're educated in approaching animals, where you offer an extended hand of friendship or get on their level and do that. And if they come up to you, then they've given consent for you to touch them or talk to them or whatever. But if they don't, if they sit back, if they growl, then you want to leave them alone.
The
And that's if
notion's
you.
kind of to like maintain the immersion and
Mhm,
to meet them in that sort of headspace.
mhm.
Is that sort of how you mean it?
Yes. And that's if you see them alone. If you see them with a handler, you always want to talk to their handler first, like you would with any bio animal that you see on the street. You would talk to the owner before you just run up and start playing all over their dog. At least
Mm-hmm.
hopefully. At least hopefully.
Yeah, fair.
But you can actually talk to any pet player just normally, and they will either find ways to affirm or deny your questions in their pet space. And if they can't, then they will break their pet space to let you know that, hey, that's not okay, or yes, that is okay.
Mm-hmm.
We do really well on our side of things, but the best is to not just immediately go up and touch or pull or anything, because there's still consent there. You're still a human being, even if you're in ears.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
talked about this during break, and it bears speaking out about it, that the outfit it should be, any accessory should be treated as an extension of the person, right? And in the case of one of the accessories you showed, if you handle that too roughly, you could actually cause some serious harm and pain to a person. If yeah, you have no idea how it's being worn. So yeah, if that gets pulled, or if that gets manipulated the wrong way, that could really be dangerous. So treat any accessories as if it's an extension of the person, and assume that has just as much, you need just as much consent to touch any of that or to interact with any of that as their actual body.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a generally good idea to not just go up and tug on anybody's tail under any circumstances, but in particular, if that tail is connected to somebody's rectum, you could be doing some damage, whether that's like actual pain or just a lot of social embarrassment.
Yes, definitely.
Well, we've been talking about these sort of like group setting type situations. What would a pet play scene look like for somebody who is perhaps a little bit newer, or is sort of exploring this space and is working in a like a just couple dynamic? You know, two folks at home who are curious and exploring pet space. What would a afternoon look like?
So I think that would depend on the pet.
Sure.
I'm not sure what a bunny would do. That's not my bunny tail. It's my best friend's bunny tail. So they would do something completely different than what I would do.
Mm-hmm.
And then a pup would do something completely different from what I would do. If you're at home exploring pup play, because for some reason I have more experience with people exploring pup play than anything else, you would walk on your fours, drink out of a dog bowl, or eat your
Mm-hmm.
food out of a dog bowl. Same thing with being a kitten. I drink or eat out of a bowl or a plate. Sometimes if you have a fun owner, you can make treats in the shape of animal treats.
Wow.
And I do this for my parties. Whenever I throw moshes, I make treats for everybody so they can be given treats while they're playing. And then I lost my train of
No,
thought.
I'm just completely, because the way I would have answered that would have been different. Like, where, like, if I, and I've been in relationships before with people who never really explored a pet side until then they just realize, just by the dynamics of the relationship, there's a lot there that kind of mirrors how a pet owner relationship would normally work. Does somebody really like affection? Does somebody really like their hair touched, or do they like to be groomed, or do they like to be dressed up and shown up, or little things like that? Do they like affection? Do they like treats? And then to start from that and say, you know what, these are some slightly animalistic tendencies. Don't be afraid to don't just, wow, hey, don't hold back, let it out. If you are feeling this way, go ahead. This is going to be a safe space for you. Let's just see where this goes and what happens. And it's nice to see like S tier pet play over there, with compared to the kind of entry level stuff that I usually help people with, where it's we're not ready for outfits and costumes yet. We're just getting used to the idea that it's okay to be animalistic. So
Mhm.
Yeah.
I feel like the drinking water out of the bowl is usually a fairly easy step to be animalistic without it being too over the top.
Mm-hmm.
You just drinking out of
To
a water
ease into
bowl.
that space,
Yeah.
sure.
yeah, well,
Yeah, well, I mean,
there's
maybe it goes without saying, but we're talking about pet play. We're talking about play. You know, I mean, if there's one message that I really like to stress to everybody, it's that sex is just play. It's just people goofing off. And that doesn't mean that it isn't important. That doesn't mean that it's trivial. I mean, these are incredibly powerful things, but that sense of immersion, that sense of maybe even silliness, that sense of like really going for it, particularly when you feel safe, whether that is in a private environment or one that's maybe a little bit more open. The whole notion here is that consenting adults would be able to connect and have fun and release and explore their emotions and their mentality. I mean, there's really no wrong way, I suppose, so long as you are, being respectful and ethical in your boundaries around consent and safety and these sorts of ideas. But I suppose the messier and the sillier you can feel you can comfortably be, the better. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
No, and I think you talked about this in a past episode too. Plug, plenty of episodes to watch of this. But that sometimes taking on a role other than you helps you express parts of yourself that might be difficult otherwise. So, um, yeah, I think when you say it is play, let it be play. Then sometimes, as long as you're both still having fun with it, there's no right or wrong here. There's no one right kind of outfit, as Shade was talking about. There's no boundaries as far as how much you have to be immersed in it. Find where you are with your partners, and have fun.
Yeah.